Warning. Uncharted planet detected. Scanning. Scanning. Warning. Life form detected. Life form identified. Christopher Griffen of Mongoose Publishing. Incoming transmission.
Greetings, travelers, and welcome to Traveller RPG headquarters. You can find our Facebook group by searching our name in the Facebook search tool, or find a link in the video description below. Thanks for participating in our third annual Mayday Traveller Day event. It's a day we celebrate Traveller and all its additions and offshoots for all the fun times it's given us around the gaming table with friends and family. I'm your host, Frank Succardi, also known as Cyborg Prime, and today I'm happy to introduce Mr. Chris Griffen, one of the primary writers at Mongoose Publishing. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
This is the first time you've joined us for our event, and we appreciate that, so thank you very much.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to talking about my favorite game.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? Where are you from? Stuff like that.
So I'm 53, and I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, specifically Pleasanton. Grew up in San Jose, California, and also went to college in California, UC Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm. What did you study at university?
An economics major, and then realized that I'm terrified of math. So I switched majors about a year in and got an English degree.
Oh, all right. And then use that to pursue your career as a writer? I
did, yeah. Mm-hmm. I went into, shortly after I wanted to, since I'm from the Bay Area, tech is the main industry up here, so I wanted to make it a decent living. So I became a technical writer pretty early on and put that English degree right to work.
Oh, good. Do you have any favorite sci-fi books or movies or anything like that from when you were a kid that inspired you?
Oh, a ton. I mean, like so many from our generation. I realize you're young by like 10 months or something like that. But Star Wars, obviously. I was about 10 years old when that came out and just blew my mind. Such high production values for the 70s and great epic story. I'd seen other sci-fi before that and it already caught my attention. But as far as movies are concerned, I never looked back after that movie as far as being a huge fan of sci-fi space opera. But most of my inspirations come from sci-fi books. And more recently, I really love the modern age of sci-fi authors like Ian M. Banks, his culture novels, Alistair Reynolds with his Revelation Space series, and others. Another good author is John Scalzi. You've read him, Old Man's War. He's got a whole series of books on that, and a more recent trilogy called The Interdependency. I highly recommend that to Traveller fans. It's really inspirational for the type of scenarios we run. So many other ones. Number one's got to be Dune, Frank Herbert. Mm-hmm. I mean, totally. I've read it multiple times since I was a teenager. I just love that story. It's so epic and so involved. Such great world building.
Yeah, it's very, very detailed and thought out pretty well.
Yeah, it's great.
So, what was it about Star Wars that kind of caught your eye or hooked you into sci-fi?
I mean, it's the characters, like you've got this, the lovable scoundrel, the young farm boy, the old wise sage, and then eventually the sensei, right, where the Yoda who comes along and teaches how to master this central aspect of the story of the Force. The princess who ties them into the rebellion. And I mean, just the characters they just draw you right in. And then they put the trappings of all these, the production values, the sets, the special effects that probably younger people think that looks unrealistic. But when we were growing up in the 70s, seeing those X-Wings and Millennium Falcon fly around looked totally realistic. And it just immerses you in this other universe, and you can imagine space travel and adventure just that excitement. So I guess those are the key aspects that drew me in.
Yeah, it's got all of that stuff. One of the things that I like about it is it was technically tight time. I mean, it was like a technical masterpiece for its era. Even though we look back on it now, like you say, it might look cheesy or whatever, but at the time it was huge accomplishments.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too. It took a little bit of its predecessor or a predecessor would be Star Trek, right? Which sort of envisions a utopian setting, and then Star Wars is a little bit dystopian, right? People are enslaved. There's authoritarianism, warfare, and I think shortly thereafter, other film series took that a whole other level, which is also an inspiration for me and probably most Traveller and Sci-Fi gaming fans, such as Alien. And that, corporate dominance, the complete lack of empathy for the individual, darkness, horror, and then other films took that to even more levels, dystopian nightmares like Blade Runner and Outland. Just really great films that immersed you.
It sounds like you have a broad palette of sci-fi to draw upon for inspiration for your own stories.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I like to bring in the darker, more frightening aspects to terrify my players when I'm reffing, and hope that they forget about it when they ref me.
So a lot of time I'm trying to frame our background stories in terms of Traveller, and I know you went to university, but sometimes war comes to your planet and you get drafted. If that ever happened in your Traveller world, which military branch would you hope you or expect that you would land in as yourself, Chris?
Yeah, as myself, I would think it would be the Army. I think I could find my place in the Imperial. I like that they generally stay on once, but occasionally get shipped around. I don't know if I'd want to be on the Navy. I mean, I guess when I think Navy, like our world, I wouldn't make it in our Navy, in a wet Navy, because I pretty much get seasick in the bathtub. So that also, rules out the Marines, since you're shipped around on a boat.
Right.
So the Army, just stick, ground pounders, stand on the ground would be good for me. So yeah, probably the Army, and I'm thinking in a support function, like possibly artillery or some technical
logistics, like just taking supplies around.
Yeah, maybe one term in the infantry, but then I would transfer to do something that I think a little less dangerous.
All right, fair enough. And Traveller, we get 3 0-level background skills that represent our skills carried over from childhood. What would you say your 3? They don't have to be Traveller canon, but what would you say your 3 background skills are?
My 3 background skills. Well, I guess Art 0, because I've always been an artist and a writer. It hasn't gotten too much above 0. I'd like to say I have writing 1 by now, but definitely Art 0 would be one of my background skills. It's something I always did as a kid. Athletics 0. Okay. I kept trying at that, but I don't think I ever got it much past level 0.
What kind of athletics did you play? Sports or just?
Yeah, I ran track and played football. Neither of which I excelled at, but I had you know what they say, that the older I get, the better I was. So I have
glory days.
Yeah, that's right. And then I guess drive 0. I don't know. My dad certainly drove a car as if he was on some kind of Formula One track all the time. So I think I picked up a few tips.
All right. Okay. And do you have any hobbies aside from? Before I get to asking you that, how about how would you stat yourself? Strength, dex, endurance, intellect, education, and social. Yeah.
My UPP.
Your UPP.
Yeah, my universal. Is it personality profile?
Yeah. Personnel.
I don't know, man. You asked my age, so everyone knows I'm 53, and I'll tell you, I failed a lot of aging roles at this point. So probably, I'd like to preface this by saying it used to be better, but I don't know. I'd like to think I still have a strength of 8, approximately, a little over average. I'm clumsy, so I'm going to drop that to a 5. So in Mongoose terminology, I get DM -1 on dex checks.
Right.
Let's see. My endurance is still pretty good because I still cardio, so I'll put that at a 10. And then intelligence, I'm not going to get too presumptuous here. I'd like to think I'm reasonably smart, so I'll give myself a 9. Education, well, I read a lot, and both educated and educated myself, so I'll give myself 10. And then I'm firmly middle class at a 7 for my social standing.
Sounds like you put some thought into that.
Well, I knew that question was coming, and if caught off guard on that one, I'd probably boost my stats to what I wish they were. But it gave me the opportunity to be more realistic.
Gotcha. I think it's one of the first questions I asked around on the Facebook groups when I started it up there. Stat yourself, and it was pretty popular.
Yeah, I like when I've seen friends do it, and I see the stats they give themselves, and I write them like, "You do not have a 10x. Give me a break."
Right. It's funny to see what people think of themselves and what things are high or low, and they try to be fair to themselves, but it's funny just the people's personalities come out. Did you always have gaming in your life? Do you have any other hobbies? Well, do you have any other hobbies aside from gaming?
Yeah, well, yeah, I read a lot. The main thing, I try and read a ton, and it's got to be 2/3 to 3/4 of it is science fiction, which my kids give me a hard time for. I have a son who also has an English degree, doing just about done with his master. Seriously, Dad, you need to read some actual literature instead of that garbage. But I love it. I love sci-fi, and particularly space opera. So I do read a ton, probably 15 to 20 books a year. I always been into athletics. Right now, my main thing is mountain biking. We live next to some nice, decently tall foothills there, and strain myself to go over the hills and humbly watch as better cyclists zoom past me, as long as they're not on an e-bike. Are you familiar with these things? These e-bikes?
Yes, yeah, I've seen them around.
Yeah, okay, I get it if you're 60 or 70 and you just still want to stay on the trails, but you got these 17-year-old kids on an e-bike. It's like, dude, man, you're missing your cardio. But anyway, yeah, that's the main thing I do. Another hobby that I love to do, and also travel. Obviously, the past year that hasn't been happening. My wife and I like to travel quite a bit as well.
Where's your favorite travel destinations?
Oh, I love going to European countries. In the last several years, we went to Britain, to France, went to Italy, and Germany, because my older son is, as I mentioned, he's getting his master's. He's doing it in Germany at a university there. And we went and visited him for a Christmas, which was freezing cold. As a Californian, I was not accustomed to. I was not ready for that.
Not amused.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was well wrapped up in multiple layers of clothing. We spent Christmas in Munich a couple of years ago, and it was fun. Although, and then we also got to Austria on that trip. So yeah, a lot of European travel is my favorite places to go. And my wife loves to go to Mexico, so we went to Oaxaca, which I highly recommend, especially good food. It's a super great place for that.
I like to go sometime. I dabble in Spanish where I live. A lot of people speak Spanish. I like to travel and speak Spanish.
Oh, you would get the chance to use it there. There's not a lot of English speakers there.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So,
and not a lot of American tourists either. It's actually a place where people from other parts of Mexico to travel. So
cool.
You'd find it an interesting cultural experience.
Yeah. So have you always been into gaming? When you were a kid, did you play cards, or did your family have game night or anything like that?
Yeah, we were board gamers. Definitely, we played various, the board games that existed in the 70s. I seem to remember one called Aggravation the most, which was aptly named. You would use marbles on this board, and excuse me, and you could bump your opponents so that they have to go back to the starting point. And as a kid, I probably shed a few tears playing that game. It didn't deter me. But yeah, eventually, relate going forward to playing games. I think it was probably 1979 or 80 when some friend introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, the gateway game of playing games.
Yeah. So that was your first RPG, pretty much?
Yeah, it was.
And how did that go? How did you find out about it? What was the first game? What do you remember about the first early games in D&D?
Yeah, I think I went to a friend's house and they were already playing when they were delivering the lines of their characters, and they invited me to play. So here's how you make a character. You can be an elf. What? Yeah, that's amazing. And how the combat works and all that stuff. And I think we pretty quickly got into, what do they call, power gaming or munchkin gaming, where your characters are always ridiculously overpowered.
Oh yeah.
And got stuck in that phase for quite while, for a kid, it takes a while for you to realize that that's not as fun as you think it's going to be. Challenges are actually entertaining.
Right.
That was my experience with D&D, and had a great time with it.
That's one of the things Champions taught me when I first started games was flawed characters are more interesting than powerful characters.
Yeah, Champions I dabbled in a little bit in time. I never really got that into it. Remember, you would get disadvantages by more advantages, isn't that?
Yeah, you could take, you get so many power points, and then you get the bonus ones if you took some disadvantages, like you had to code against killing, or you never told a lie, or you were, you had to, recharge your power ring, things like that.
Right, yeah.
Maybe you had a dark secret or a little old lady granny you had to take care of. Those things made your character more interesting.
May.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was it about role-playing that it kind of got you hooked?
I guess I've always been one of these people with a vivid, I spend a lot of time in my imagination. Too much, according to my wife and kids. They often see me daydreaming. I love seeing myself in fantasy and sci-fi universes, which is part of reading so many books from both genres. So, and to be able to be a participant in that is just, okay, I'm all in. Let's do this.
So it's the just the creative process of it, the what if scenarios. What if I was in this situation, or what if this thing existed?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And early on, I was usually a player early on because I was new to the games. I quickly became mostly a dungeon master, GM / referee in most games. I sort of had a knack for setting the story environment. And I'd like to think I've gotten better at it. I think I was a bit too much of a torturer as a ref for most of my game mastering career. I would envision the stories that we're in, whether it be a D&D fantasy setting, Western game, sci-fi game, as a novel, in a great novel or movie, the characters have to be through their paces. They have to suffer through great indignities and challenges. Get to and I guess everyone has this in their games, but a lot of the players I champ would say, yeah, you went a little too far with that. Did you have to kill half the party to accomplish the story? But yeah, I definitely forced myself.
All right. So it sounds like you prefer to be, or you ended up being a GM rather than. Well, you started out as a player, but now you're pretty much always the GM.
Yeah, most of the time. I would like to play more. I would like to play in some more Traveller and adventures, but we'll see. I'll find a willing GM at some point.
Tell me about Traveller. How did you find out about it? How did you start? How did you get into playing Traveller?
Yeah, so not long after the discovery of D&D, actually, as I mentioned, seeing Star Wars was a seminal moment for me, like it was for so many of us, and I was thinking after playing maybe, several sessions of D&D, wow, this is great, but I sure would love it if there were a science fiction version of this. And so back then it was hobby stores that carried all the games. So, I asked my mom or someone to take me down to the local hobby store and look around. And, I went and did that, and there was a place in San Jose, I don't think it exists anymore, San Jose, California, called D&J Hobby. And I went down there, and of course there was they had plastic model kits lining most of the aisles and things like that, but they had a nice gaming section, and I started looking through there, and sure enough, lo and behold, I found the little black box with the Free Trader Beowulf statement on the cover, and you picked it up and shake it a little bit, and there are dice in this thing too. Okay, that's interesting. Are they going to be 20-sided? No, I have no idea. So I somehow convinced my mom to buy it for me and took it home, and it was a very different experience, right? The GDW crew designed a very different looking game, D&D, which was so visual with lots of illustrations all over the place. I think there's like maybe 3 to 5 illustrations in all 3 of the little black books, but really took to that. Something about the elegance of it and just the graphical look was really appealing to me. Just so basic, nothing on the cover, three colors, black, white, and red,
Right.
and then a nice simple rule set. You quickly, even my 11 or 12-year-old self could tell, wow, it's going to be easy to get killed in this game. and then you see the character generation, and you could die during character generation in Classic Traveller, and the whole thing was very appealing. Of course, so I took it. It was the original, as Mark Miller will state, the original 3 black books are very much designed to let you create your own universe. So I did that, and of course I mimicked Star Wars and thought, I looked at the weapons in it, and there's no laser swords. So I invented that for the game. So we immediately had lightsabers in our first couple Traveller games. And we just kind of went to town with it. I wish I could tell you what any of the stories were like. I'm sure they were complete ripoffs of Star Wars and Star Trek and other films of the time. But we had a great time with it, and I never looked back.
Do you have a favorite Traveller career that you like to play?
If you could get one that survived, I would go for a belter. I always liked that career. I thought sounds like really exciting, searching asteroids for valuable metals and that sort of thing. But if I remember correctly, it's from Citizens of the Imperium, one of the supplements that had the belter career. I think the survival is like 9+ or something like that. So getting a survival, you didn't want to be belting for too long. If you could make those first 2 survival rolls, you could maybe switch careers or just get started with your character. I always liked that career. And that and Scout, those are the 2 that appealed to me the most.
What is it about Scout?
Oh, just the idea of exploring and visiting alien worlds, making contact. The other thing that appeals was the ship.
Mm-hmm.
You could easily get the scout ship from mustering out.
Right.
And then by the time I got into Traveller, I didn't pick it up in 77 when it first came out. By the time I started playing in probably 1980, I'm guessing, they already had several supplements out, and they may have even had supplement 7 out, which was Traders and Gunboats, which really took that game to a whole other level for us. I don't remember if it came out after we started playing or was already out. But those deck plans in Traveller are one of the coolest things, right? Because you show that back then it was photocopying a page. Now you can print it up or do all kinds of if you use Adobe Illustrator or whatever, you can draw up your own. But you photocopy that thing. You go, here's our ship, and then people start writing. This is my stateroom. This is my character's stateroom, and then someone claims this, and you have this. Talk about immersing yourself. The ship and its deck plans really enable you to kind of physically picture the universe more. So I think the scout ship had a lot of appeal to me. So part of the reason I would pick that career. And then of course the belter gets a modified version of that ship if they're fortunate enough to land a seeker.
Oh, right. The mining conversion of the scout ship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly.
Do you have an all-time favorite story about something that happened in a Traveller game?
Man, I guess I don't know if I have an all-time favorite story. I've had so much fun with the various incarnations of the game. I did enjoy introducing my sons to the game in many years later. I've got 4 kids, 2 daughters and 2 sons, and my sons, especially the older one, remembered me playing RPGs when he was very small. And once I got into all this, our family time just made it difficult to still really engage in the hobby. But he remembered that, so he said, "Hey, why don't we play that game you were playing?" I said, "All right, let's see what they got out right now." I had no clue. This is like the early or the late 2000 aughts, so 2007, 2008, and I saw that Mongoose had a version of the game out, and I knew about the other ones. I knew GURPS had the license for a while, and T4 and T20, all these other versions, but Mongoose seemed to be a nicely supported one. So I bought several Mongoose Edition 1 books, and I refed them. And what I think was pretty funny was just watching my son's personalities come out in the game.
Uh-huh.
I put them through some scenario where they had access to a ship, and I didn't give them any NPCs. I think probably a scout ship, something that 2 guys could fly, right? And they end up on some rockball airless world, and they go there, and they discovered there's like an underground base, and someone's enslaving people there. And so they eventually they have guns, I don't remember, Gauss rifles or ACRs or something, and they encounter these guys. And my older son was so no specifics, I guess, but was really willing to shoot bad guy NPCs. He was going crazy, like emptying that magazine left and right. And my younger son, who's ostensibly with him, there are 2 characters in this environment,
Right.
never fired a bullet. He kept kind of telling the bad guy, "Hey, stand down," and freeze.
Right.
And so it's just funny how you see when people play an RPG, how their personalities come with it. And that's not to say that my older son's homicidal or anything. It's just to say that he's got a more aggressive personality, and the
his
younger one
style's
has
maybe a little bit
more,
go getter.
yeah, exactly.
It's a more aggressive style, I guess.
So I guess that's a story. Other than that, just so many. I've run a ton of this game's campaigns and adventures over the years. I think probably the most enjoyable campaign I've ever run was I think Chuck Gannon wrote it. It was Hard Times in Mayday Traveller, which
I have that.
is like oh, you have it? Yeah, great. We had a great time with that. I think the greatest part of it is you really get to be a hero if you so desire.
Right.
Because it's the rebellion's happening, and things are collapsing, right? Things are not going well, and so you've got we had already played all the Spinward Marches and Solomani Rim campaigns in Classic Traveller. So in this one, you're like in, I don't know if, as I recall, it's like Diaspora sector or Massilia, close to where the war is really tearing things up. And Hard Times has world collapse rules. So planets that, Traveller has this thing, if anyone who plays around and looks at the stats for the worlds, or, looks at Traveller map, for example, and, you can kind of travel the galaxy a bit and look at the UWP stats. There's these worlds that they're very uninhabitable, right? There's no air or very little air, or they've got an exotic or corrosive atmosphere, and sometimes they have billions of people on them. Well, the Hard Times had rules for collapsing those places, and so you have situations where your characters, flying a free trader or whatever, have the chance to save people as their high-tech society is collapsing because it no longer has trade to rely upon getting all the goods it needs. And I don't know, it just really, the players got really creative and really got into it. That was a very fun campaign to run.
What kind of gaming advice would you have for a brand new Traveller player? Let's say you go to a gaming store.
Yeah, a new player?
A new player. Let's say you go to a game store.
Are you player, GM, or just...
Well, both. First, let's start with player. You see some people at the game store, and they're sitting down with brand new Traveller books, and they're trying to figure out how this goes. What would be your advice to the players?
Right. So I've noticed a lot of people who come to this game. Every incarnation of the game has sort of a core rule book or core set of rule books, and those invite right in. Generally, they're fun, right? For one great thing about Traveller is that character generation is a game within the game. It's a mini game, and I think even more so in Mongoose Traveller, which emphasizes contacts and establishing connections. Actually, that's what I meant, not contacts, but connections between the characters. But then they look on and they discover, wow, there's a ton of lore in this thing. How am I going to play in this thing? Where do I play? They get overwhelmed. If you pay attention to the various internet forums and things like that, you see this kind of trepidation a lot. And I guess my advice would be, don't get hung up on that. Pick a little area. You can homebrew. It feels like to me like it's almost like I would guess a 50-50 break between homebrew players and people who use the published settings. So you can homebrew your own little area, or pick one little corner of a published setting. Don't get all freaked out about the whole thing. You really could, in this game, you could stay on one world the whole time, the one star system, and have a great campaign. Although the game is called Traveller, and you're not using jump drive. You're kind of robbing yourself of part of the fun. So, but that said, you could occupy just a little jump one main or a little area and pop around 3 to 10 different worlds and have a great time with this. So don't get overwhelmed. Pick a little area and run some good stories. Run the sci-fi stories you've always been wanting to participate in. I guess that would be some good starting advice.
So like just take it easy, and you can always visit the published settings later. Or, dabble into the Imperium if you like.
Yeah, probably a homebrew is the best way to start, really. Just start a little area. I think Mongoose had a starter set out a few years ago, and that one kind of started you in one subsector and then gave you blank subsectors all around so you could make it your own. That's a great idea. But if you do want to use the published setting, just that's a great thing. Pick a subsector or pick a couple worlds in one where you want your story to happen, and make that your little sandbox, and kind of go from there. You don't have to overwhelm yourself with thousands of years of history,
right,
and every other overwhelming aspect of the setting.
What kind of advice would you give to a brand new traveler referee?
New referee. The main thing that I recommend is give as much player agency as possible. Let them make choices. Let them have multiple ways of solving every problem you put before them. Just you kind of want to avoid the railroad. Avoid the railroading. Don't have just one path to success. Have a scenario. Be flexible. Be ready to improv. Because players will typically do stuff that you did not expect.
Have a plan B and C and D.
yeah. Just be easygoing. Like be ready to change from maybe have an initial plan, but recognize that it what's the famous saying about no plan of battle stands up versus the enemy, or something like that. Something to that extent. The players are going to change things rapidly. So you want to just go ahead and imagine as much player agency as possible. When something happens, they should be able to figure out how to solve it. And I guess another piece would be, don't limit yourself to what the characters have. There's a tendency to go, you don't have that skill. So we can't do that. We're stopped there. I think what I'll usually ask the players is, okay, you wanna do X, so that's fine. Tell me how you do that, and just listen to their solution. And if they don't have the skill, they often look to another player in their group for a skill that they can relate to it better. Just more or less leave it open and let them solve the problems. Never close the door, because that's just not a fun session. The immersion and the enjoyment of a session for players is being able to get into this universe. And if you close the doors, then it's not going to be that fun.
Good advice. So you have a friend come to you and say, Chris, I want to get started playing Traveller. What should I buy to get started?
Well, I'm a little biased, obviously, because I write freelance writer for Mongoose. So I'm going to bias towards their books at this point. But I would say get the core rulebook, get the central supply catalog, so you have lots of gear, because gear is fun. And so are weapons, although be prepared. The weapons are fun to imagine using, but you can live by the sword and die by the sword in Traveller. Very easy to get your character killed if you get in combat all the time. And High Guard, I guess, would be those. I'd say get those 3 books to get yourself started, because if you really want to immerse yourself in a Traveller setting, you're going to need those 3 things.
All right, so we get the core rules, the High Guard, which is the starship rules, and the central supply catalog, which is gear. All right, that's a good set.
Yeah, and technically you don't need High Guard, but it's got so much more about starships. And as mentioned, the game is called Traveller, and the more you know about ships, the more fun it is. People love the ships, right?
Yep.
Also, as I mentioned, the deck plans and that sort of thing. It's got tons more deck plans in it for you to work with. The core rulebook already has everything you need to get started, but I really think people are going to like High Guard. If not immediately, then 2 months after they start playing.
Right. All right. So you see these people at this game store, and they're now looking at the central supply catalog. What 3 items would you suggest every traveler player have in their backpack?
Yeah, I guess it's going to matter. It's going to differ from ref to ref, but you're going to need, if I think the most important things, you got to have a vac suit.
Okay.
Because who wants to borrow a vac suit? I mean, who knows who's been wearing that stinky thing? If you find it in the supply closet or the ship's locker, you need your own.
Right.
So
okay.
get your own vac suit. They're it's a little pricey, but hopefully when you muster it out, you got enough money to buy your own. And the higher tech, the better. But depending on the limitations of your campaign. So vac suit. Yeah, that would be number 1. See, number 2, even though I keep mentioning how dangerous combat is, everyone knows that about Traveller. You should be armed, right? And why not get something that's you can hide everywhere. So it doesn't do much damage, but a body pistol is a really great item because it evades most security systems. And that way, every time you get to a high law level world, you have the option to smuggle that on your person
mm-hmm.
and carry it around the world without being arrested. Let's see, the third item. What do you need? Seems like I usually have ready answers for this one, but I can't think of. Oh, of course, a hand computer. You've got to have a portable computer because so much of Traveller is discovering a new environment, right? Every world you go to might be drastically different. It might have an alien race living on it, or it might have a king governing the planet, and then the next one is an anarchy or a socialist utopia or something like that. So you need a portable computer so you can patch into the local data network and figure out what the heck is going on.
All right. So vac suit, body pistol, and pocket.
That's what I would say. Yeah, those are your 3. I could live with those 3.
All right. So tell us about how you became a content creator for Traveller.
Okay. Yeah. So after I guess a few years ago, my old gaming group, we were out I think for someone's birthday or somewhere at a bar. We're at a Starport bar. No, we were at a bar, and one of the guys said, "Why don't we play Traveller anymore?" And I said, "Oh, you want to?" and I said, "I'll ref it again." And this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And so I said, "All right, let me look into it." And then I thought, well, a few years ago, I had refed my sons in Mongoose Traveller. So I looked into it, and they are just starting their 2nd edition books. So I just started snapping those up, and I wrote up a little, not a homebrew adventure, but it was in the official setting, which I noticed Mongoose was supporting Trojan Reach really well, which brought back memories, as a longtime player of Classic Traveller Adventure 4, I think it was, Leviathan, where you go into the Trojan Reach and they have it like this wild place there with civilization being very spotty. So I set something there and I got the whole group together and we started playing. And then as you delve more, and Mongoose was really starting to ramp up its products for the 2nd edition, and there was this talk of Pirates of Dranax being revised, which when we started had not yet, the 2nd edition version had not come out yet. But I thought, we might do that eventually, but let's just dabble around this area. And so we ran Last Flight of the Amoir and some of their other published adventures. And I started writing some of my own. And as I mentioned, I'm a technical writer, and so I'm used to producing books. And I produce graphics for tech companies here in the Bay Area, and graphics and the written content. So I kind of had experience with sort of authoring and publishing tools, and I used some to kind of create a couple adventures, and then I would go to the Mongoose forums a lot, and I kind of wandered into this thing they called the TAS program, which is Traveller's Aid Society, and it allows individual publishers to make their own Traveller products and then publish them themselves. And Mongoose gave you templates and things like that for a certain desktop publishing product, and I went and got a hold of it and made my own, and then I published them on drive-through. And then I thought, well, those are kind of nice. They look very, garage band level traveler content. Let's kind of up the notch a bit. Let's take it up a notch. And I made Makergod, which is in the Trojan Reach and deals with a world called Oba, where there's these kind of like barbaric guys that fly around in kludge together ships and enslave people. And so I put a lot of work into that. I did some graphics for it. I hired Ian Stead. You may be familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of Cepheus engine stuff, and is a publisher, an independent publisher in his own right. He does really cool starship illustrations and deck plans. So I commissioned him to do a ship for Makergod, and I put that on the cover of it, which, thank you, Ian. I feel like that image really sold it. And so Makergod did really well and sold a lot of copies and continues to sell even today. And so, but one of the things I discovered in Mongoose's Trojan Reach setting was this little area of space called the Glorious Empire. And the Glorious Empire is an Aslan splinter state. It's this little cleft of worlds in the Aslan Hierate portion of the sector that is part of the Hierate. So what's going on here? So I looked into it, and it seemed really cool. Like they enslave humans, and they're not the typical Hierate. They're like a pariah to the entire galaxy. Everyone hates them, and yet somehow they still exist. This is a really nice dystopian, horrific environment. What a great place to run a campaign. And I thought, I want to write this book that for Mongoose. And so I just kind of cold emailed Matt Sprange and said, can I write Glorious Empire for you? I wrote Makergod. It's done really well. So if you should be so gracious, would you give me a shot at writing Glorious Empire for you? And he was really nice. And he said, I would not. He said, I would be open to that. However, can you kind of let's see how you do on an adventure first. So I said, okay. And so he had me pitch him several adventure ideas, and I wrote, and he accepted the one that became Exodus, which turned out to be Trojan Reach Adventure 6, I believe, which does deal with the Glorious Empire and the Aslan and helping some recently liberated slaves to kind of get to a promised land. And so I wrote that, put it out, and I said, okay, so now can I write the Glorious Empire? Tugging at Matt's sleeve, and he said, yeah, probably, but first, how about a naval adventure? And so I said, okay. So I pitched him several naval adventure ideas, like 5 ideas, I think, and he picked the one he liked, which also happens in the Trojan Reach, and that one became Naval Adventure 3, Fire on the Sindalian Main, and shockingly, it also involved the Glorious Empire, and in one chapter of it, and then he. I thought eventually he's going to let me write the Glorious Empire, and indeed he said, "Yeah, go for it. Start writing it." And so, you know what they say though: be careful what you wish for; you just might get it. I've never written anything quite like that. The Glorious Empire ended up being 160, 170 pages, somewhere in there.
Wow!
And which I mean, I've now written larger books for them, but that was pretty overwhelming for me, and it took me, I think, like a year to write that book. And I think in the meantime, I probably also wrote Naval Adventure 4 for them, maybe stuck that in there. But it was not, I was not accustomed to being a disciplined writer on something of that scale,
right.
Even though I wanted it all that time. So I did get it done, and Matt was very patient. I would send him messages every few months. I'm working on it. It's coming. And I don't know, at some point he was probably thinking, yeah, sure. But, and then one day I dropped the manuscript on him, and he looked it over, and believe he liked it because he published it. It's actually out now. I think it came out in PDF in January, and in May it's coming out in hardback. So that's my origin story.
All right, fantastic! Congratulations on that accomplishment. That's something else.
Thanks. It was fun. It was. I went through writer's block, tearing at my scalp, but ultimately, I'm pretty pleased with how the Glorious Empire came out. It was just a big challenge for me to write something of that magnitude.
What's your favorite type of content to produce? Do you like to write the stories, or do maps and modules, or what's your favorite? Like, if you could do something all day long, what would it be?
World building. I love world building. I don't know that I'm qualified, but I love for a sci-fi setting, I love world building. I like looking at a star system, seeing what its primary and or secondary companion stars are, and what somehow making that work with the universal world profile, which can be a challenge, especially in our day and age when we have amazing technology and telescopes now discovering new exoplanets every single day, and we're learning that things that we thought were possible probably aren't. And the Traveller universe, of course, was put together a long time ago. So establishing that these things are possible, sometimes a challenge, but it's fun too. And imagining just completely wild societies that might exist on these worlds as well. So world building is definitely my favorite aspect of it, whether that be a paragraph describing a world that travelers might stop at for a quick refueling and then moving on, or full on detailed system development with all the moons, gas giants, Oort cloud,
right.
Stellar flares, stellar flares, all that stuff. I enjoy world building quite a bit.
Just imagining a place and what it's like.
And
super
and
rewarding.
putting in, and the goal should be to put little, if you want to use the metaphor of knobs and buttons and bells and whistles for players to enjoy, right? It's not a good world in an RPG setting if it can't be incorporated into a game set. So that's always in the back of your mind when you're designing a world. How can this be fun for players, for travelers to visit?
Right. So tell us what you've been up to this past year. Did you, with the COVID going around, did that impact your gaming schedule at all, or did you manage to get more work done, do some new productions?
Both, and all of the above. So like most people that were, I've people that were able to retain their job, which I know a lot of people have suffered and have had a tough time this year. I'm fortunate enough to have had a job that can be done remotely. And so I was able to work at home, which removed all those commuting hours, which gave me more time to
produce,
to read, which also brings in more ideas, right? And to produce, which was really handy for my next big project that Mongoose put my way. But I'll get to that in a moment. But first, you asked about gaming. My group kept it going and went to Zoom and Roll20 and things like that to do virtual tabletop gaming. And we were kind of already experienced at it because my core group, a couple of the guys in the group moved out of state while we were in the midst of running Pirates of Dranax, actually. So we were already using Zoom to bring them into games and kind of learned how to. It was a half in-person, half remote game for us for a while, which was tricky because it's easy to ignore the guys on your computer screen and just concentrate on the guys at the table if you're not very cognizant. Remember, immerse everybody, Right. So we kept it going. We played just as often as ever, and more recently, I don't know, playing about weekly. So
wow.
I don't think it's hindered us. Yeah, I don't think it's hindered us at all from gaming. I do look forward to some level of in-person gaming since I'm lucky enough to have a local group. From what I can ascertain from paying attention to the online community, most people do VTTs, virtual tabletops.
Yep.
Because it's not easy to find a group that plays the game you want to play, the setting you want to play, et cetera, et cetera. So people do it online.
Yep. I live in a rural area, and there's not a ginormous player pool here, but with VTT and playing online, the world is your player pool. And I've met all kinds of great, interesting people from all over the world. I'm super thankful for the invention of VTT.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And I was a little slow to leverage all of the technologies available. I just started leveraging more of what Roll20 is capable of recently. I know a lot of people use Foundry and Fantasy Grounds and other tools as well. But wow, it's pretty friggin' handy.
Yeah.
So,
I started myself on
I'm
Roll20 because it was free, and the barriers to entry were pretty low. I eventually got a pro account and then started producing on the marketplace. But that's where I started. That's the VTT I started with.
Yes, I have seen your stuff. It's quite good.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. Do you? What's your? Tell me about your most recent product.
Yeah, I've been pretty busy for them. So yeah, I meant the last year enabling me to have more time to produce.
Right.
I kind of, after writing Glorious Empire, I thought, I guess my Traveller career is over. But I figured Matt would ask for some more things. But he came to me and asked me to write or to pitch an outline for the Third Imperium. And I kind of knew why I think I know his motives for doing it, because I pay attention to the online community, and you see a lot of new players come to this game, and they are interested in the published setting, and they go, I'm loving this game's lore. What should I read about to know about the Third Imperium? And and it's hard to answer that question because Traveller has this, wealth of lore, but when it comes to actually defining the main human government setting, which is huge, if you look at the map, there wasn't really one book where it was summarized. It's split out into all these books, and some are in Classic Traveller, some are in Mega Traveller, some are in T4, T5, etc. And so he said, "Can you pitch me an outline for the Third Imperium as a setting?" And so I did, and he gave me that project, and I kind of took the lessons I learned writing Glorious Empire, and I produced the Third Imperium, which ended up being nearly twice the size of the Glorious Empire.
Wow.
in less than half the time that it took me to write. Yeah, I just really, I got up every morning before work and put a few hours in on it, and then to my day job, and then when possible at night as well. But so I got that out, and he has the manuscript, and I'm quite proud of it. The Third Imperium, I think, I believe that Traveller aficionados are going to really enjoy it.
What's the biggest benefit they will gain from this product?
So it's got a lot of stuff in it that you could use in just about anywhere in the official setting, because it focuses on, it's got a section on the military forces of the Third Imperium. So we're talking Imperial Navy, we're talking the Scout Service, the Imperial Army, which, if you really think about the quote unquote Imperial Army, does not get a lot of real direct coverage. And looking at previous, there are a few books that have been published over the years, and a few of the incarnations that were available for research material, but really it hasn't gotten a whole lot of coverage. So describe them, Imperial Marines, etc. So you can use descriptions of those things anywhere in the Imperium. And then it's got the history, which I assembled from multiple sources and tried to fill in the blanks here and there. And there's a lot of detail, but the one thing about history that I tried to change a little bit was it ends up, like many histories, as a person who took Western Civ in college for my general education courses. I remember it's often the story of wars and kings, right? And Traveller's no different. A lot of its history is the wars and the emperors. And I tried to kind of bring it down to a little more personal level in some cases. And I included several sections that show what it was like for the common individual during the various eras of history, but still covered what happened as well, and tried to fill in the blanks here and there to add some fresh perspective that might add to it for players of the game. And so it's got the history. Other than that, it's got a lot of new ships and new gear, some new technology. And it includes a complete core sector, which I assume a map of core sector. So you've got longtime players of the game that use the official setting are probably used to the Spinrad Marches or Deneb, and then more recently the Trojan Reach. And a lot of other players love the Solomani Rim, and I'm included. I love the Solomani Rim. I mean, who wouldn't want to go visit Earth in the 57th century?
Right.
But core has gotten not a whole lot of coverage. So there were a few subsectors detailed by Digest Group, and probably in the 90s. And I took that and I used that for research material on this. But most of the subsectors were not developed. So I created core sector, a playable core sector. And I think, I think that, of course, the Spinrad Marches is cool because you're on the frontier, right? And that's exciting stuff. And there's alien races on every single corner of of the Imperium there that are some who pose threats and some who are friends. It's an exciting realm. Solomani Rim is a high tech, super long settled sort of urban, massive urban interstellar environment. Well, core is it's definitely not frontier, but what it is that history has trampled this sector, and you would expect it. When I thought of it, when Matt talked about taking this on, I thought it's going to be like, overwhelmed by tech level 15s, and it's going to be boring, and there's going to be 10 billion people on every planet. Well, not so. It's actually a pretty diverse place, and it's got some unique characteristics, which I think will make it a very fun role-playing environment. A little almost like if you can imagine Dune or these big empires with these powerful nobles in charge, and or like Star Wars, like Coruscant or something like that, where there is a heavy population, but there are some dystopian aspects, and a lot of the worlds in between have sort of been ignored or have the remnants of ancient history on them. Right. So there are aspects to it that are very different than playing on the frontier or playing in the Solomani Rim. It's very different, and I think people are going to find it pretty dynamic and fun.
What was the hardest part about doing this project? I mean, what was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome, and what made you most proud to accomplish?
Well, this one had to be heavily reviewed by, as Matt calls them, the inner circle. So Mark Miller and several other folks that are kind of, many of them have been involved in T5, Traveller 5, and other longtime contributors and content developers for the game. Kind of had to vet my material. And so I got a lot of comments. I had multiple rounds of comments on this thing. It got vetted by the big guys. So hopefully that gives it some level of validity. But that was a challenge because there are people that are saying, "Hey, you're now touching the main main sector. The seat of empire where capital is. You can't screw this up. So we're gonna give you some feedback on it." So they went through a few rounds of reviews, which was an added part of the challenge. The other thing is just how many resources were used to produce it. There are a couple key books from Classic and Mega Traveller that were used to put it together, but really there's just so much lore, right, to go through to produce this thing. So those were some of the challenges that had to be overcome.
It's an ambitious project. Congratulations for finishing it.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. More than I thought it was going to be, and that's one of several things. So, do you want to hear about more projects?
Yeah, tell us about some of the other popular titles in your line of products.
All right. So, well, for one thing, I'm heavily supporting core because I want it to be. I mentioned I think it's a dynamic and playable place. Well, I'm going to help support that. I've produced one core or core adventure one is in the can. Hopefully, will be developed soon, and it's called Invasive Species, and it uses, among other things, it involves the safari ship. It brings that in, or has a situation in which the travelers are flying a safari ship, and involves a lot of alien animals. And I also reprise the hunter career, but I don't know if that's going to make publication in that book. I think Matt might hang on to that and put it in Companion 2, but unless I can convince him otherwise. But if longtime players of the game will remember the hunter career from Citizens of the Imperium and Class of Traveller. That hasn't made its appearance yet in Mongoose, so I recreated it. Hopefully we'll see that soon. And then Core Adventure 2 involves a starport bar, and that one's called Last Call at Eneri's Cantina, and it involves like some of the politics in core sector, and it starts at the basis of a starport bar that the travelers care about, and you kind of become embroiled in something way bigger than you. I don't want to spoil too much other than that, but
Sure.
And then there's a third one. One thing that's interesting is that Matt, as my editor, he asks to include sort of social issues in some of these books and some of these adventures. And the third one is it's called Errant Lightning. And I'm not going to spoil it yet as to what social issue it deals with, but it sort of metaphorically deals with a particular issue. And when you're doing something like that, you don't want to, number one, you don't want to beat people over the head with it, and you don't want to preach. You want to provide an environment and that this thing is happening, and then let the players address it like they will. But you can imagine in a far future civilized environment, there are going to be issues like this.
Right.
So,
well,
it's kind of cool to cover it.
That's kind of a foundation of sci-fi as far as I'm concerned. Like, the early Star Treks were always social commentary. Like you got the guy who's half black and half white, and it's like, don't you see?
Right.
He's black on the right half, and like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Slightly beating you over the head.
But the Star Trek crew is like, what the hell?
Yeah, this is weird, but we accept it because we've seen a lot of things like this.
Right.
So,
do you want to tell us about some more popular titles in the line, or was your previous thought interrupted there, or?
Oh yeah, I'll start with that one.
Okay.
There's one other one to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the one that's actually the closest to publication is Solomani Front Adventure 2. It's called Bell of Rocamadour, and that one started when. Actually, Matt approached me, sent me an email, and said, you think you could come up with a concept that deals with uplifted apes? And so I said, yeah, sure can. I would love to. That's one of the cool aspects of the uplifts, right? You have dolphins, uplifted dolphins in Traveller, uplifted apes, and some of the other ones that exist too. And so, of course, I pitched him Planet of the Apes. and he said, yeah, we can't do that.
No.
There's a little copyright problem with that. So I said, fine. And he kind of said, well, can you pitch me a story in which the apes are just kind of, it's not about, this big, it doesn't have to be this giant epic story, just they're some guys. And so I came up with I pitched him a story that occurs in Alpha Crucius sector and is very near the Turin consolidation, which is an interesting concept. The Solomani Confederation has several, I guess you could say, subsidiary governments within it, and the Turin consolidation is a religious government that imagines that the Catholic immigrants came and settled several worlds, and so it involves the Turin consolidation and uplifted apes from a planet called Pijo, and the process of, let's see, how much I don't want to give away too much. It involves a bell, hence Bell of Rocamadour.
All right.
And and you interact with the uplifted apes who are NPCs in the story, and or your travelers could incorporate one or more uplifted apes as well, since creating them is described in the Solomani Front, a recent publication from Mongoose.
Oh, so they could be a
those are the
playable
ones
race.
I got right now. And absolutely. Just like dolphins, which I think got reintroduced in Behind the Claw, and so uplifted apes got reintroduced in the Solomani Front. So that one, I'm actually really proud of Bella Rocamadour. Even though it's in Alpha Crucius, which I think is cool because it's kind of an undeveloped sector in many ways. I don't know, I like the pacing of that adventure, and I'm looking forward to running it after the amazing graphics crew of Sandrine, Cassie, and I guess recently Katrina got added to the group after they get their hands on it and make it awesome.
Cool. All right. So, what do you get? Any? Where can we find these titles?
So, as you can get them at mongoosepublishing.com or on DriveThruRPG.
All right. Cool.
And hopefully hard copies at your local gaming store in the near future. At least all the Mongoose ones. As far as the one I've written way back when, the task ones, those are all available on DriveThru.
All right. Cool. And so, what are your plans for this next year? You're gonna, let's say, get your vaccination, or the COVID goes away. What are you looking forward to doing first, gaming wise?
Well, I am fully vaccinated now, so I'm already on my way.
Awesome.
Let's see. I guess my core group here in the Bay Area is looking forward to getting together again. So we're very much looking forward to making a partially in-person game. I've introduced several new players to the game recently, but they're all remote, and I'm going to continue to use probably Roll20 or another VTT to run them, since their enthusiasm for Traveller has been awesome. It's infectious. I'm happy to be the guy that first ref them, and want to continue with that as well.
It's fun to see the game from the fresh eyes of a new player.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the rewarding things for me. I really like making new Traveller players, or helping make new Traveller players.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, obviously, I love it as a person who plays refs and develops for it. But you wonder sometimes, is this person going to take to it? And if people come to the game, because it piqued their interest, just the description of sci-fi and the far future, they usually really take to it.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people play D&D, but a lot might not know there's a science fiction version. That's kind of I love D&D, but I felt more at home in Traveller and Shadowrun. Just the tech stuff. Sci-fi appeals to me more than fantasy. Although I like fantasy too. And that's the grandfather of where we are now. Without D&D, we wouldn't have Traveller. So, respect to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah. So it's cool. And it's a home a lot of people don't know about. And that, I think once they try it and see how fun it is, they can find a home here too.
It's great how different it is too. The game it's got a simulation side to it that makes it feel a little more real.
Yep.
It's obviously more deadly. It's not 0 to hero like D&D, right? Where you're level 1 and you move up to level 18 or whatever.
Right.
You're more or less always the same guy.
Right. I kind of like different. How it's like a simulation of life, and like you especially in Mongoose, with their life events, and then training your character. You basically have to take a 1-credit class, to go up a level, and then it's like that many credits for however many more levels. I mean, it's kind of cool, and it seems like in between adventures, or like in Jump Space or whatever, your characters are tinkering and studying and pursuing their personal interests, and it gives a whole offline life that's going on.
Which that kind of immersion just makes it that much more fun for the players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, every session you've got a referee who's describing the setting and kind of laying it out for you, and then being there for questions. You're a resource. The players ask, "Oh, how tall is the alien? How big of a starship is this that we're approaching?"
Right.
Then, in addition, there's a game played. Each person's ultimately going to see a slightly different vision, but if they all are equally immersed, then they're going to have a great time with it.
Right, right.
And then that just adds to it, right? That another aspect of it is that my character is developing in this universe, and and that's my role in it. So yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, one of our other guests described it as storytelling, like different people storytelling from the same brain, kind of. It's like
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, we once had sort of a meta conversation about that too, about how, when you think about it, each person is envisioning a different, if you want to imagine it as a television show or a movie, each person is seeing a slightly different movie.
Yeah, but you're still all in agreement, about how it is.
And yet you're all in the same thing together. It's
Right.
it's pretty crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So do you ever go to conventions or go to the local store and cultivate the traveler gaming community that way, or?
I haven't, but I really got to get into that. I've always had such a reliable gaming group, and I have extended the game to some folks using, as I mentioned, using the VTT. But again, that's through the network of players that I know. But I definitely got to play in a convention environment at some point, and I really want to go to Traveler Con once it's live again. So I will be branching out into that at some point, but I haven't yet. No.
Great. Maybe we'll meet at a convention someday.
Let's do it. If you're going to run something, reserve me a spot. I want to play in one of your campaigns.
I'd be honored. Hey, so how can people get in touch with you? And do you have a website, Twitter, social media?
No, not really. Although I do generally, if on various traveler forums, you'll find me as Paltrysum, PALTRYSUM. That's the ID that I usually post, and I'll usually contribute. And I love reading what people are doing with the game, and I'll pitch in where I can and get involved in the conversation.
Which forums are normally on?
I do Mongoose forums. There's a Traveler Discord server that I participate in. There is, I like the Reddit forums. Those are pretty cool. You get a pretty good mix of new folks and older or players that have been with the game for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple other smaller forums.
Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, of course. What am I saying? I forgot. Yes, Facebook. I don't pitch in too much in those. I do watch the conversations and occasionally chime in. So yeah, there are some really good traveler forums on Facebook.
Yeah.
There's for folks that don't know about it, there's a really good Pirates of Dranax one where people are pitching in all kinds of materials that they have created to enhance that whole, obviously very popular traveler campaign setting. So there's some good Facebook forums as well. That's
cool.
Absolutely right.
All right, cool. Well, we've come to the end of our interview.
Wonderful. It's been a pleasure. Nothing more fun than talking Traveler for a while with a fellow long-term fan.
I love Traveler. I'm a big Traveler nerd. Yeah, that's why I did put this whole thing together, because I just wanted to talk about Traveler with other Traveler.
I know. Let's just keep doing it, right? Yeah,
right.
And you get to do it for again and again.
Yeah.
Lucky guy. Yeah. And thanks so much for doing this too, Frank. The
sure.
Mayday thing is so cool and brilliant, by the way. Of course, Mayday.
It's it's one of those things where it's just so obvious. I'm your host, Frank Succardi, also known as Cyborg Prime, and I've been talking with Mr. Christopher Griffen of Mongoose Publishing. Tell us once more where we can purchase your titles.
They are available at mongoosepublishing.com and at drivethroughrpg.com. Both my Mongoose official products and the past things that I've written.
All right. Christopher, thank you so much for participating in the Mayday Traveller Day event.
Thanks so much for having me, Frank.
Hope you'll join us again next year.
Most definitely.
Cool. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us today. That's all for now, travelers. Until next time, happy traveling.